back to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today is a sponsored show by Interior Design Business Academy, which means that Terri Taylor is back. And if you are a long-time listener of this podcast, at least the last 2 or 3 years, then you are literally smiling ear to ear right now because you know every single time that Terri Taylor comes to the show, she teaches us a valuable lesson about some aspect of running the back end of the interior design business that I know is eye-opening. Every show has been eye-opening for me. I get the mail that tells me that it's eye-opening for you. And so today I'm delighted to have Terri Taylor back, another sponsored episode. As I said, she is here with the Interior Design Business Academy. And so Terri, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I am really happy to be back.
I'm glad to have you back again. And Terri, you know, for anyone that maybe this is new, I cannot tell you the number of new listeners that we've got in the last 4 to 5 months. And so maybe we'll certainly put in the show notes each of the other times that you've been on the podcast. But for anybody that might be new with us today, just give us a little bit of background on your career as a designer and now as the CEO and the founder of Interior Design Business Academy.
Sure. I'd love to talk about that. I've been an interior designer for 35 plus years and along the way became a general contractor as well. So my specialty ran into remodeling and construction as well. So I've had this really broad base of what I did. My practice was doing residential to begin with, but by the time I got into it deeply, we were about 60% commercial as well. So we did model homes for almost all the national home builders in southern Arizona. We did a whole lot of remodeling projects. We did a lot of medical pieces, some hospitality, just really a broad range of jobs, which is really fun. I happen to be in a city of a little over 1 million people, so we're not as specialized here as we are in bigger cities. So it really let me learn a whole bunch of different directions and be successful in a whole bunch of different ways. Now, one of the things that happened along the way was a lot of publishing, some national stuff, some regional stuff, you know, lots of awards, lots of design awards. We use that for part of our marketing pieces. But what happened along the way was that I became, in my community, the person other designers came to ask, how do I go after this job? How do I write this contract? What do I do with this? You know, so it was kind of a natural piece to step into coaching. And that was 10 years ago. And that came out of the Great Recession. I kind of flipped my model home business around because we had a big staff doing that and had to shut that down, and stepped into doing remodeling more because I figured that, well, people were not going to be happy with their houses, but if they can't sell them, they're going to remodel them, which they did.
Smart.
And that it worked, kept the studio going. But I also was thinking that maybe I should do something that wasn't so totally keyed to the home building industry. I need another income stream. And I started messing with this coaching thing, wondering if that wasn't really something I could do. You know, along the way, my daughter graduated from design school in Denver and went to work in Southern California, actually in La Jolla. And I started playing with her career and how to get her published and how to get her started. And quite frankly, she ended up published and all over the place and had a booming business within about 2 years. And I thought about it. I thought, you know, it took me 10 years to figure out how to do that. I was like, look what she did. Wow. You know, so, you know, that was the basis of, you know what, I need to share this more. I need to share this more. And that was actually 10 years ago now. So that's kind of a
Well, I
kind of a
love it. I love it because here, you know that saying they say it took me 2 hours to do, but it took me 20 years to be able to do it in 2 hours, like that sort of a thing. And so,
Mhm.
your daughter, it's funny, all the times we've talked, I've never heard that story. And there it was like you took all of the things that you had done over your career and basically coached her through, did it for her, whatever it was, but stood by her side. And she was able to accomplish in 2 years what previously took you 10 to do. And that is the value of working with someone who's been there and done that and has done it before you and has done it successfully before you. You cut the learning curve down. Like that's the whole point, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It took me years and years to figure out how to be profitable. I did it, but it took a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
because now there are. I think obviously it's between the podcasting world, it's the internet, it's lots of things. But when you and I first came up in our businesses, you just didn't Google how do I do this. You went and did it. You did it. You did it, and you fell on your butt, and then you got up and you did it a different way, and you kind of taught yourself a lot of the back end of how to run a business. I know that's the way it was for us. And so now, here designers have the resources. And one of them is the Interior Design Business Academy, which you have been successfully running. And I have had, you and I first met because someone who went through your Interior Design Business Academy emailed me and said, you have to interview Terri Taylor. She has helped me in my business, so much that you have to know her and interview her. And so, here you are. You're helping more than just your daughter, right?
yes, many hundreds,
Mm-hmm.
actually into thousands now. And
That's awesome.
it's really great. It's my thing. I really have a blast, and I really love empowering women, essentially. Not all women. We got some heart-centered guys too, but
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, helping women step into who they really are and get paid what they're worth. Really,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really so much fun to see that happen. It's just like blooming. It's like, whoa, isn't that
I
cool?
know, right? It
Yeah.
is when you see it happening around you and you see the difference that it makes in someone's business and by extension their life. It's so amazing. Yeah. So today, Tara, we're going to talk about, flat fees versus hourly billing. And I know that I follow you and you are a proponent of design fees, flat fees, rather than billing hourly. So first tell us, why this? Why do you feel that this is the way to go?
Well, because we get in our way as designers so badly with the hourly thing that I run into so many people who maybe 10, 15 years into their business, and they're making 35, 40,000 a year and working 60 hours a week. I'm going, "Oh, that's not right.
Mm-mm.
That's just not right." So in looking into why that happens, what we find out is that, well, we as designers are not very good at tracking time. I mean, it's not really what we like to do.
Mm.
And so when it comes time to bill that time, we don't really have a reference so we can just pull up. We got to go back through the calendar and go, well, I did this, I did that, we did this bill, and it comes up with something bobbly that isn't really all the time you worked,
Mm.
right? It's just a sum. It takes a long time to do those bills. I mean, people tell me they spend 2 days every 6 weeks sending out bills.
Mm.
Well, if you wait 6 weeks to send the bill for the time, people have forgotten what you did. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
you've probably forgotten what you did. So,
Mm-hmm.
it having the money run that far behind what you're doing is a recipe to keep you broke, right? It
Yes.
just
And it's also a recipe to invite negotiation and questioning and challenging, right?
absolutely, absolutely, because then you're charged with writing something that makes sense to them about what you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And very often it'll bounce back. Oh, did that really take you too long? Well, the reality is it took you 3 times longer than that. But you only had 2 times that on the bill, and then you looked at it and said, "Oh, they won't pay me that much," and you reduced it, right? It's
Well,
like
that's right. What you're talking about is somebody is looking and absolutely knows that it took them 9 hours to do something, and I'm not talking about the situation where they're lesser experienced and they're saying, well, it shouldn't have taken me 9 hours. But there are times when it really will take 9 hours to do something, but a designer will look at it and they'll decide that the client won't see the value value in it. So then they don't bill the 9 hours. They bill 6 or 3 and just put it out there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they've given themselves a demotion before the bill ever went out. Right? If the people are going to protest, they'll protest anyway, regardless of what you put out there. So you might as well put it all out. But the problem there is that you run up against your own money story every time you send out a bill. Oh, they're going to pay that much. Oh, I don't know if they think I'm worth it. Oh, I mean, there's all this stuff going on internally that's causing that to happen. And when you have to do it 7 or 8 times a month or 10 times a month or 20 times a month, you're inviting all those opportunities to diminish yourself every time you send out that invoice. It's
Now,
really crazy.
You must have, I just want to just go down this tangent for just a tiny bit before I break apart, how to time, come up with a flat fee and so forth. But I know that there are seasoned designers out there that are capable of making what they're worth and making a good living by doing hourly billing. But the caveat there is that they're not engaging in this other behavior, right? It's more or less like if you're hearing this and oh yeah, I do this. This is like, painful. Every 6 weeks I sit down and do this and I have to go back and figure it out. And it takes me 6 hours to figure out that I spent 7 hours doing the job and then I send an invoice for 2. I mean, like if that's you, then you need to think about a different way of billing. But for anyone that is like, look, I track it in real time. I calculate it out. I send the invoice every week. If I work 6, I say 6, and that's that, and I'm good. There are designers that are successful at hourly, right? Do you agree?
There are, only if you have somebody else build the time for you.
Okay.
If you never touch it.
Okay. Okay.
Quite frankly.
Okay.
And I've also had people who were really good with time who had been a legal assistant before. I mean, they're really good at tracking time, right? I said, great, do it that way. And then halfway through the year, she says, you know what? I'd be way off or better off with fees. And I say, yeah, I know.
Okay.
I mean, there's the time to do what it costs to send those bills out, the time it takes to track all that. I mean, it adds up, and I think some of it's just, you end up with a better framework, and not that it can't be done. I mean, I'm not saying my way is the only way. However, what we've developed here is essentially a recipe, a system by which you can follow that works for designers all over the country. Hundreds of people have done it. It works really well. It's useful. Right. So it's an easy thing to step into. One of the big things that I see happen with jobs that run hourly is that they stop about 2/3 of the way through. And that's probably a bigger deal than the self-diminishing stuff. But you got this really good job going and you're running through, you're building it. This is one they say, there's no budget, we can have what we want, that sort of thing. But about 2/3 of the way through, they start excluding you from design meetings and they start buying stuff on their own and they start messing up what you're doing, right? So what's happened is this truly great job has turned into something that you're not going to be able to photograph, and it's not going to come out the way you wanted, and they're going to tell people that you did it, and that's embarrassing. I mean, the whole thing starts to unravel, and it's because you ran into a budget ceiling that you didn't know about, right? Because it wasn't set up enough in the beginning to know it was there.
So I'm going to I believe I know what you're talking about. I'm just going to frame it. So what we're saying is when we think we have agreement from Mr. and Mrs. Client, Mr. Client, whoever it is, that we are, hey, we're going to design your first floor or your living room or your primary bedroom, whatever it is, we're going to do this. And they're like, you have a conversation about investment. They're like, oh, we want it to be amazing, blah, blah, blah. It's fine. Let's go ahead. And you're doing it. And then all of a sudden, the client internally is reaching a moment where it's getting to the top level, like you called it, the undisclosed budget ceiling, where they're no longer comfortable still spending money. But they didn't know where the end was. You didn't know the end was coming. And so the room maybe has none of the accessories, or there's lighting that hasn't been done, or whatever it is. And it's the project is stopped on the rails and you don't get a project designed to completion. You don't get a photograph worthy project. And like you said, worst case scenario, they're finishing things on their own and it doesn't even really resemble your design any longer.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's awful.
Wow.
I mean, that's like the worst.
Right.
That is the worst thing that could happen because, you got your heart in this, you know where it's going to go. And it's like suddenly it's not there anymore. And that's a sad thing. And I know all of this. I mean, I've had many things go that way before when I'm running on an hourly piece where it just kind of dissolved under my feet. And
yeah.
What do you got?
See, that's what I love. Like knowing that you were 35 years as a working interior designer. It's like my line on the show, Terri. I always say, in my experience, because, you can't debate my experience. If I'm telling you in my experience, that means I've experienced it. It's like, that's it. You can't tell me it's not true, right? And so in your experience, here you are. You've been in this space before. You've been in this space where you thought everything was fine. And for 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years, it was. But then all of a sudden, it wasn't. And it doesn't mean that you and the client fell out of love. It doesn't mean there was some sort of acrimonious thing that happened. It just, like you said, I love that line, undisclosed budget ceiling. One or both people that make the decision with the money just got to the point where like, this is enough. This feels like enough. And I don't know that the accessories I'm buying are ugly, so I'm going to keep doing it myself.
And I'll just finish it at Home Goods.
Right. And so you've been in that situation, and then this is a culmination of your reflection on a career that these things have happened to you, and now the ways that you absolutely not only just mitigate them, but avoid them now. This is your experience on how to also now run the project X amount of ways. And what you're saying is by doing a design fee, this doesn't happen.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because in order to get a design fee, you have to have an agreed upon budget.
Right. And the budget includes the accessories all the way down to the end.
All the way through. Yeah. Yeah. So the percentages of you getting all the way to the finish line are much, much higher. Much higher.
Right. And if you don't, then it probably is some other crazy acrimonious thing that we don't love and sometimes are unavoidable, happen however many times the course of our career. But it's not because of this, random, we're done spending money, but I didn't know to tell you that. Like exactly. If you knew it 2 months before, you might have, rearranged the budget in a certain way to still have beautiful main pieces, but allowed you to accessorize or something to that effect.
Exactly. Because we're good at managing budgets. I mean, we can design to a budget. That's no problem. You just need to know what it is. Because when it comes up as a surprise, then you're caught on the wrong side.
Right. It's like if I have a Snickers bar and then somebody's like, "Oh, I also have a Twix." I'm like, "Dang it. I would have rather had the Twix." But I already had the calories.
So no more.
Right? And that's what it is. It's like you spent the money, you didn't know that was the end of the budget, and now the project is not going to be the way you envisioned it to be. Okay,
exactly.
So the thing is though, I mean, we can't just pull a number out of our hat for a flat fee, right?
That's right. That is one of the struggles I think that designers have, is not having this clear system for figuring out what that fee should be. And besides getting to that point of having the fee, there's a clear system behind it of how to get the job done in that number of hours that the fee buys.
Right. That's the thing, because you do have to. I'm going to let you explain it, but you do have to decide. You still don't just say, "Well, give me 30K." Like, you still base it on data, but then to your point, if you've decided that, okay, the primary bathroom is going to take you 10 hours, the primary bedroom is going to take you 20, the kitchen is going to take you this, you still then have to manage the project so that those rooms get done, those tests get done within the hours that you allotted. And that's scary for designers as well, in your experience, right, Terri, that they afraid they'll put an hourly to it and then they'll run off the track the other way.
Exactly. Not being able to meet that goal at all. But usually that's because they didn't have a plan of how they were going to do it.
Right.
right?
Right.
Right. So the two work hand in hand in there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just making up a number. There's actually a relationship between budget and fee. In other words, if to make it really simple, if you had to pick out, you needed a wall sconce for the hallway, okay, it's a $300 or $400 wall sconce. You can't spend 5 hours looking for it, okay, because
Mm-hmm.
5 hours of your time is going to cost more than the light fixture.
Mm.
Right? So
Right.
you've got to have a sense of the relationship between your time and what the product is that's coming out on the other side, or what the project is, or what that budget is, because
Right.
direct relationship between the two,
Right, right,
directly.
right. Like if you're designing complicated window treatments for 5 windows in a living room, that could come out to $20,000, $30,000. So yes, that's not going to take an hour to figure that out, but that's okay because that's in relationship to what the final thing is that you're selling there, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So it might be a good idea to be able to talk about what five very complex window treatments are going to cost,
Right.
right? Just to start with, not defined. We picked the yardage, we picked that, but in a way where you have enough backup information at your disposal to know that this one that you did, you can even have a picture of it, in your
Mm.
in your notes that you work with. Here's one I did, here's one window, the fabric was $80 a yard. This is a little smaller than your big ones, and it was about $8,000. So probably yours would be about 10 in order to get that same kind of coverage,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then
Mm-hmm.
if we've got five of those, well, then we're really talking about $50,000. Is that good with you?
Right. Right. And
Right?
and just stop talking. Is that good with you?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
right. Pass the salt. I use your line all the time now. Pass the
like
salt.
that. That's the thought. Yeah. Yeah, good, good. And the trick is to throw out a big number. Don't make it skimpy,
Right.
because then then you got to hustle to try to do it.
That's
It's
right,
like,
because you've anchored a low number that isn't really realistic. And you can always anchor a larger number and come in lower, and that's fine. But
sure,
anchoring a low number and saying, oh, this was about, this is, you and your brain could know that this was an $8,000 window treatment. If you say, well, maybe 5 or 6, well, that's not it. No, if I think the treatment is 8, I'm going to say 10. I'm going to say
yeah,
this was probably about 10. Because what happens, right? There's 5 of them. Now it's $50,000. If somebody
mhm,
looks at me and says, oh my goodness, I thought it was going to be 5,000 for all 10. Now, well, we're done. Okay. We've
right,
got, let's go get wood blinds. But if the person is like, oh, we were talking about this and we kind of allotted 35 or 40 for window treatments. Well, I know I'm in the ballpark now,
yeah,
right? I can
exactly.
make this work.
I could make that happen. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and that's the key to it, because you don't want to go down that path of figuring out what five of those 50, those window treatments cost. Pick the fabric, do the drawings, find the rotting, get the takeoffs, all of that, and then find out they're going to faint and fall on the floor,
Right. Right.
right?
No, I
I
love
mean,
it. This is one of the other episodes that you did with us was coming up with a budget on the fly. And it's this
mhm.
eyeball estimating and I will put it in the show notes because, Terry actually in that episode walked you through how to come up with a $50,000-$60,000 budget on the fly in a conversation. And that's the backup to this point that she's making here, right, Terry?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so now the thing about it though is I'm assuming so what we have more to talk about here, but
Mhm.
ultimately we are inviting people to come to your Design Business Summit that's happening this November, and the title of this summit is How to Confidently and Gracefully Charge a $35,000 design fee and Get It, and so. I know that you're going to cover that in the summit, but just for those of us that, I'm not going to be at the summit, right? So I'm
Mhm.
already curious. And my thought is, if I don't have that experience where I know that I've sold 10,000 sofas and I know they're all usually going to be between 10 and 15,000, or this kind is going to be 30 or 40,000,
Mhm.
how like I'm sure you're teaching it in the summit, but in general, how do designers get this experience? How do they know that they are coming up with a flat fee that is workable and would be profitable for them?
Well, the flat fee is going to relate to the budget. So the first question there is how do you help a client develop a budget? Right?
Okay.
And that's what's in that whole piece there. And I won't go deeply into that. But essentially, what we do is we make up cheat sheets. We have them on forms, but the cheat sheet represents your three best upholstery value vendors in a format of good, better, and best.
Mm.
Right? So
Okay.
what's the least expensive sofa you'll sell? What's your mid-range? What's your high range? Okay, because you need to have that stuff ahead of time. If you run into the client you really want, who wants some really high-end stuff, and you don't have those relationships set up with those showrooms, you're going to be a deer in the headlights.
Right.
You don't know what to talk about, right?
Right.
You're not going to be able to meet what she wants, and she's going to know it, right? So you want to set up your vendors, your good, better, and best vendors ahead of time that represent your ideal client that you want to sell to.
Mm-hmm.
So within that, then we just create a cheat sheet that says, good, better, best across the top, and running down the left is sofa, love seat, chair, sectional, ottoman, chaise, occasional chair, blah, 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 cocktail table, end table, all those pieces, right, that would
Mm-hmm.
say go in a living room. And then you just sit down and look up the prices in a mid-range. Pick a G level fabric, right? Or an E or something like that, and do them all the same and get what those prices are so that you can just look at your cheat sheet and go, oh, well, a good quality sofa starts at about $6,500. You good with that? Right? So it's information you could pull up, and it's not a big deal. I mean, I have examples of it. The example I did in my studio with my price books. It took me all of 45 minutes, and I have an entire house full of furniture. Right? And you could do it with construction stuff too. You could do it with flooring.
Mm-hmm.
You could do it with solid surf tops, that sort of thing. You can do it with window treatments by using pictures of things you've done.
Right.
And pricing. Right? So they're expecting you to be an expert. When you can start being an expert in pricing and being able to talk about money in a way that's not how much money do you have to spend, but what are you comfortable with spending on this, the whole conversation changes.
Love that distinction. Right? Because no one wants to reveal how much money they have, but they're, gonna eventually reveal what they're comfortable spending. It is a completely different question, right?
It is. Totally.
Yes.
Totally. Because people are happy to talk about what things should cost.
Right.
They'll tell you that if you don't even ask them, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then you uncover their biases towards what things should cost, and that's when you ultimately uncover if you are a right fit as well. Because if somebody's thinks a sofa is usually $1,000 and we're not going to Bob's Big Boy store for it, like they're not the right client, right?
They're not your client.
Right.
Yeah. And you could finish up that little budget and say, hey, this is going to be a great project. I think it's going to be really beautiful, but I don't think there's room for me in it. All right. And you're out. You're done.
Right.
Because there's nothing more frustrating than trying to sell stuff to people who can't afford it. It frustrates them. It frustrates you. It's like it's a waste of time.
Right.
So the sooner you get through that, the better.
Right. Okay.
In my opinion.
So what I love is you thank you for the recap of all of that, but the actual 45-minute detail of that is in this other episode, and we, like I said, you absolutely should listen to it. Now, when we do this flat fee, it now becomes very important, though, that we, as you mentioned, run a tight job. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, this is the other side of it. This is the side that I think nobody thinks about too much, and it's really important that it's there. Is that when you have that fee, you will take your internal hourly rate. Now I say internal because it's not good to sell with your hourly rate. It sounds scary. You're much better off with a fee based on what we're doing. But you take your internal hour rate and divide it into that fee, and you'll know how many hours you have to do this in. Okay, then you want to sit down and think about, my best advice is to think about how many presentations you need to do to get to the end piece where you're selling it. Okay, so is it 2? I have some design teams that can do it in 2. They do really good programming and they do beautiful work and 3D elevations, and boom, they can do it in 2 things and do $100,000 sales. Click, like that. Now, that took them a while to get there, right?
Right.
We're not all going to be doing that, right? But at the same time, a living room with, say, a $30,000 budget shouldn't take you more than 3 meetings. In fact, you can't afford to do more than 3 meetings, which means that you present things as a whole and not as individual pieces.
Right.
Okay, that's really important that you think about how you're going to make it through this job and how you're going to get this to happen. So obviously you got a programming meeting to start with where you need to collect all your information and measures and photography and all that stuff, right? And then you've got the next one is more like a schematic meeting where you're going to show a concept, you're going to show some basic pieces, color schemes, perhaps some fabrics. You know that you are within budget with this stuff because you have this budget to start with. You can assure them of that. So how much time does it take you to get from programming meeting with your measures to this presentation? What do you need to do? Well, I need to draw a footprint. I need to draw a couple of space plans. I need to pull a little bit of furniture. I need to pull a color scheme. You know what those things are. And now you can look at those as smaller time blocks. So perhaps I need 3 hours to get those drawings done. I need another 2 hours to get the fabrics pulled. I need another 2 hours to get the furniture pieces in there. Okay, that's how I'm going to spend that time, and I'll be ready for that meeting. Now, the other side of what happens when you do that is you tell the client that's how it's going to work.
Right.
Okay, because a lot of the problems that designers get into with clients who take over their jobs and start telling them what they want them to do next, embarking orders and that sort of thing, which is a horrible position to be in. I mean, it's like being a puppet and somebody's pulling on your strings, or worse yet, you're a purchasing agent
Right,
or
a
something,
glorified
like
personal shopper,
personal
right?
shopper.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's not what you do. So, but that tends to happen when you just step into a job and take a couple hours of time up front and start throwing things at them. You're inviting that to happen.
Right.
As opposed to having a plan that you say on your programming meeting, this is how this is going to work. I mean, you can even lay it out in your letter of agreement and say, these are where your meetings are. And you know what else? You always say that the last meeting is the purchasing meeting. Okay? It's not, I have so many people say, well, I presented it and she loved it, but nothing's happened. Well, you got to set it up so that you ask for the sale and that it's ahead of time. They know they need to have their $30,000 ready by, 6 weeks from now.
Right.
Right?
So what you're saying is in that scenario, just so I make sure I understand, is we're having our, measure all the things, blah, blah, blah. Then we're doing the top level view of what the design is loosely going to be, sort of what the scope and not the scope, but what the look and the thing is. And then we say to them, the next meeting, I'm gonna present you with your actual sofa, your actual this, your actual that, and this is the purchasing meeting. So at this meeting, we will be, your budget will have been, met or under, and the design fee will be collected, or we've collected our design fee before that.
Before.
Yeah, we've collected the design fee. This is when we're collecting the money for the purchasing of all of these items, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, you want your fee paid before you do
get
the money
there.
for the stuff.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Otherwise, you get that messed up and.
Yeah, I agree. You're right. As soon as I said it out my mouth, I'm like, no, we were doing design. We're paid for design before we do the design, right? 100%.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's also a psychological piece in there about teaching people to buy from you. Right. And once they've purchased from you, they will purchase more. So you want to kind of start with that paid first appointment, and then you go to half the fee, and then you get the other half the fee in the middle, and then you get the money for all the product. So that you've got this sales funnel flow going.
Right. Well, I love the idea because the truth of the matter is that most clients don't know what the process is. So if you tell me that's the process, I'm not likely to balk at it. I'm going to say, and even if I was surprised, I might look at Vinny and go, we're going to go see the final designs at this meeting. Okay, great. And that's when we have to give them a check. What do you mean? Well, that's when we have to give them a check for all the stuff. Well, why do we have to give it now? That's how it goes. I don't know. That's what she said.
Yeah, just like that.
Right?
That.
Exactly. And
I
you know what I remember is so funny because I remember having that experience actually when our daughter needed braces. It just
Oh,
popped into my head. We went. The dentist said she should have braces. Go make an appointment with the orthodontist. Went to the appointment with the orthodontist. Did the thing, and he literally said, I'm doing the examination, and they made the appointment for one day for the examination, and made the appointment for the following whatever day or week for the consultation. And
exactly.
he said, and on that consultation, the money will be due for the braces. And I was like, wait, what?
Really?
but there
But
it
you
was,
did it. But you
like
did it,
wrote the
right?
check for the braces that weren't going to be put on for another 2 weeks, and la la la, and he was going to have to be tighten them for the next year and a half, but he was getting his money on the day. That was how it went.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
And because he explained the process and how this is going to go, you complied,
That's right. Because I
right?
could have, because I knew the process ahead of time, I could have in
Exactly.
between called around to other orthodontists. And if somebody said, oh, you know what, you can pay every month over the year and a half while I tighten them up every single month, that would have been my choice to do that. But because, to your point, he explained, or his assistant, the administrator in the office explained how it worked, I was going along under my own volition,
Mhm.
right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Because it had been explained to you.
That's right.
And what happens in design jobs when you do that is, I'd say 90% of the time, maybe 95% of the time, people will do what you tell them to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you end the people who, the A-type personalities who are trying to run your jobs.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You're right, because if it's not explained, then I know me. I'm going to question it all along. That's just who I am. I'm gonna stick. Vinny's just like, seriously, you need to interrogate everybody. And the thing is, I don't. If you explain it to me in detail with clarity, so I can understand it at the beginning. But if you
Yeah.
can't, I am that needle in your side. Or I'm saying, well, why this way? Well, why not next week? And why not the week after? And I don't know, when the plumber comes, then I'll play you for the plumber. No, if you tell me from the beginning, I'm getting all the money from you at this point, that's the point where I can say agree or disagree. And if I know if I feel comfortable with you and I feel like you are owning, like that dentist, that orthodontist, I didn't call around. I said, all right, we're going to pay anyway. What's the difference? He seems to know he's going to, what I remember was, I remembered liking that there was on this visit this, on this visit this, and then we will schedule you for the braces to go on, and then you will have a visit every whatever it was,
Mhm.
and you will get your visits for the year. And I was like, oh, this is organized. I like this. Take the check.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
must know what he's doing. He's
He
done
was
this
leading me.
before. Yes,
He was the leader in the room, and that's
He
what
was.
designers need to be. The leader, like you
Exactly.
said, the expert in the room, right?
Exactly. And that's what we're teaching at Design Biz Summit.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly that.
I love it.
Because when you can step up and be the leader and say, this is how I work, this is how this goes, people step in and follow you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it changes your cash flow. The money starts being up front instead of the end, or maybe never, right? It's all there. Because you have a fee and you have to figure out a budget for your hours, you start getting things done faster
Mm-hmm.
because you have a target. Now, will you always hit your target? Probably not. I mean, I always think I could do something faster than I can. Same to you? Yeah, sure, I'll give an hour for this, and it's 3 hours later. It's like, oh man, you know. But out with practice, I get better.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go back and review a job and see what happened, okay, and how it worked out time wise, how it worked out money wise, you can start making changes for the better. Here we have something we call Groundhog Day, and you remember the movie Groundhog Day,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Guy from the city, and he's such a jerk, but every day as the day repeats, he gets a little better and a little better,
Yeah.
and finally he wins the girl, right?
Right. Right.
So we have Groundhog Day with a sense of humor there, saying every time we finish a project, we go back through it and say, all right, what worked? Well,
Mm-hmm.
this and this and this was really cool. Okay, all right, let's keep that. What didn't work? Well, this and this. What could we do to fix that so it's not a fire next time?
Right.
All
Right.
right? And when you do that, you begin to be about 5% better on every job. And I'll
Mm.
tell you something, if you just move the bar 5% up every time you do a job, think about how good you're going to be in a year or two or
Mm.
3 or 5. It's phenomenal.
I love it. I love it. For us here at Window Works, it's the autopsy. We do the
Ah,
autopsy of every project and make
there you
sure.
go.
Okay, what happened? Was this just natural causes here, or did we kill this?
Yeah,
And how do we
that.
save this patient next time?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But you're right. And that's how you do get better, by reviewing the work that you've done and having the courage to look at the places where you could have done better, and having the conversation about how to mitigate it the next time, how to do better the next time. That's the secret sauce. And I love this 5% rule. Get 5% better every time, and you will absolutely dramatically increase your productivity and your profitability, right?
Absolutely. And your free time.
Mm.
The
Mm.
other big prize. The other big
Yes.
prize is to be able to be profitable and creative and do all these jobs and still have a life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it.
Absolutely.
Amazing. And so I know you also, in the Design Biz Summit, you'll also go into, how to do the letter of agreement and how to avoid scope creep and why this helps to avoid scope creep in the first place, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's a really important piece right then there. And actually, if you do it right, scope creep isn't scope creep anymore. It's add-on business. It's
Right.
upsell,
Right.
right?
It's another
So
invoice. This is
it is.
included here.
It's
You want
another
some of
invoice.
that?
Yeah.
Here, have it.
Here it is. So that comes from being able to listen to what the client wants and pick out what those key pieces are, and be able to put those as the things that you're going to do in that letter of agreement, and be
Mm.
very specific about it. I often talk to designers and say, "Well, I'm just going to do a block of hours. I don't know what she wants." Well,
Mm.
that's the death call there. You don't want to do
Yes.
that, So when you write a letter of agreement, you write it about what you really know, right? The rest of the stuff will come up along the way, and you can write another one. You can do
Right.
another invoice and another one, another one. It's fine. I mean, I've had jobs that started at $7,000 or $8,000 and ended up at 300, you
Mm.
know, because they're just this and this and this and this. So rather than being confused by the gobbledygook that clients often, all the things that they ever thought they wanted to do in this house, they'll tell you,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
that's not really what's going on right now. Right? So
Right.
we want to get really clear on that. Now, the way that I teach this in Summit is that what I do is I write essentially like word problems. Remember the math word problems in school?
I hate them, but
I
yes.
know, I hated those too. Yes, I do. However, however, I write these like those word problems, but I write them on client scenarios that are real.
Mm.
This is what the client said, okay, and this is what the situation is. What would the letter of agreement be? What would you do?
Oh, that's smart.
Okay. Yeah, and we do it as a workshop on the third day. We break into groups. Everybody has a scenario to work on. And as a group together, working together in breakout rooms, they figure out what their offer would be and how they would phrase it and how they would write that letter of agreement, what the boundaries are in it, that sort of thing.
Oh, that's
And
so killer.
it is, because we spend 2 days learning all the what and the how, and then
Yeah.
let's do it. Let's apply
Whoa.
it.
Love
So
it.
we come back after you've figured out, your team has figured out what you're going to do. You come back and present it to everybody else, and then we can say, well, what if you did this? And
Mm.
and this team came up with this way of doing it, right? So you get all this interchange between everybody, and you get a really solid understanding of how to take what a client says and turn it into a job offer.
Mm.
And that is a key piece. That's a key piece.
That is killer. I love that piece. I love that piece so much because, it's the putting the things into action, right? It's
Mhm.
taking something, the ideas, the concepts, the lessons, and then actually applying them and getting the critique and the result of it and seeing, yes, this worked, or I really couldn't find my way out of a box. Please help me before I leave the summit.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like, I didn't get it. It didn't work. I don't understand.
Exactly. But then you get to hear everybody else's, because it's not just one word
Yes.
problem, it's a series of them. So we want to we
Yes.
want to run through a whole bunch of those so you get a whole bunch of angles on that, right? And then we're going to make sure that you have copies of letters of agreement that show you how you would write that,
Mm.
okay? Because while you're not going to copy it, you're going to riff off of it. You're going
Right.
to go, "Oh, that's how you say that.
Right.
That's what it should look like.
Right.
That's what the boundaries look like. That's how you put meeting dates into a contract." right? So it makes an enormous difference. Okay, and it's really fun. It's fun too.
I love it.
Right?
I love it. And you're doing this in November. So we are doing this. You're doing this Wednesday, November 8th, 2022, Thursday the 9th, and Friday the 10th. And it's going from 11 o'clock in the morning Eastern to 7 p.m. Eastern all 3 days. Is that all?
Correct.
Whoa.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like
It's
a Luann
8 hour
Live.
days. Well, I am an intense person. I have a
Yeah,
lot
well,
to
that's why
teach,
everybody says,
right?
"How can you go all day like that?" I'm like, "Come on, let's go. I can do
Let's
it."
do it. Let's do it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll be amazed. It's very interesting. We do lots of different things. We come at it from a lot of different angles, but it's really important.
Mm-hmm.
It's really it's really I don't know. It's really fun to do. The whole thing is just a proven system, step by step recipe that hundreds, actually even probably thousands of designers are successful with now. So it's not something that only works in California and doesn't work in Connecticut. I mean,
Right.
it works all across the continent. We've got people in Canada. We got some Caribbean people. I mean, it's a very workable system that's very systematic that clients respond to well, and it keeps you in track too. It keeps you from spending too much of your life doing this job because you've already got it set up.
Mm-hmm.
So besides all the technical information that we supply, the templates and flow charts flow charts work really well, by the way.
Mm.
That's kind of one of our latest teaching tools
Oh,
because we're so
nice.
visual.
Right.
We as designers see things as in pictures. And when you can see it as a flow, you do this and then you do this and then it could go here and they could go there. It's like, oh, I got it. I
Right.
got it.
Right.
So
Right.
it
Right.
really helps. We have lots of letters of agreement that we share, so you know what these things are supposed to look like. Um, One of the things that we really work on is shifting your personal money story. All
Mm.
right. Besides all the technical stuff, you're going to get tons of that, right? I got mountains of it. But what I know is that once you shift how you feel about money, what your personal money story is, so that you feel that you absolutely deserve and can command a $35,000 fee, the rest of it is so super easy. It's amazing.
Mm.
It's like
Yes.
there's this light bulb that goes off, is going, oh, this is about my money, not about their money. And if I stop doing that, wow, what could come to me,
It's
right?
so true. It's
Yeah,
so true. It's like when we get out of our own head, it's because we're
mhm,
the ones that put the limitations on, right?
it's true. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely true. So, there's just some underlying beliefs there. They're not obvious. They're kind of buried. So we kind of root around with that, try to find them and uncover them. But once you uncover it and realize where that's coming from, you can let go of it. And it's like, oh, and once that happens, all the technical stuff is a piece of cake. It's just like, oh, okay,
That's
great.
great.
I'll just say, do this, then do this, then do this. And they go, it worked.
Mm.
I get these lovely emails going, I can't believe it.
I know, right? Oh my
I did
goodness,
this
that's
the way you
awesome.
told me to, and I got an $18,000 fee, and she didn't even hesitate. She just wrote the check.
Right.
So,
Right,
yeah,
right.
you're
Because you were
right.
the leader in the room because you had the confidence and the knowledge on how to do it, right?
Exactly, exactly.
It's great. Now,
And
are
you're,
you doing this by Zoom still? Because I know you
oh
used
yes.
to do it in person, and ever since COVID, now you just do it by Zoom so people can come from all over, right?
Well, exactly, and it's easier for people to be part of it. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure, for
Yeah.
sure. And it works really well on Zoom. We have really good connection on Zoom. We have a lot of breakout rooms. We have a lot. We can do a whole lot with Zoom, so we
Mm.
have a good time with it. We have a lot of movement in there too, so it's never boring, never ever boring.
That's awesome. And so
Hallelujah.
people go to interiordesignbusinessacademy.com, and early bird pricing is opening today, Friday,
Yes.
September 30th, early bird pricing. So run through
Yes.
because you've got bonuses and everything in here, Terry.
I got all kinds of things. Yeah. So the base ticket price is $12.97, but the super early bird is $9.97, and that's what we're talking about today because it's just open today. So you can take advantage of that immediately, or you can do it as a two-pay, as two $5.97 payments as well, if you want to spread it out a little bit. But along with that, if you're in this super early bird, we have some great bonuses. The first one is our project time estimating system. This is something that came directly out of my studio. It's how we used to figure out how to do time on something that hadn't have a budget, something like doing finishes for a custom builder, say for a spec
Mm.
house, something
Mm.
like that, where you've just got to figure out how much time it'll take you. This is a audio training and a text training and a format that goes on your computer that's laid out the way we do a job in terms of programming, schematics, design development, right down the line. But within all of those are these small tasks. You just choose the one you're going to do and say, okay, I'm going to do that. That's an hour. I don't need that. I don't need that. I can do that. That's 3 hours. There's a column for you, a column for your assistant, so you can put in two different rates, and the whole thing
Mm.
will calculate for you how
Nice.
much you need. Yeah, so it's very, very cool. You can also track on it how much time you actually spent. If you'll do that, it'll be very eye-opening, but you don't have to. Right? It's a 24.97 value. It's something we don't sell anymore. It's just part of our program, but I do it for this because it's such a good tool. I mean,
Nice.
it'll really help you figure out what your time is. We also do a wealth consciousness training live workshop. Okay, that's a live workshop with me. It's about an hour. It's the beginning of looking at your money story. And it'll be about a week before Summit. So if you can do it and join in it, we'll get you started in thinking about and shifting the way you're thinking about money and how much of it's yours and how much is the client's and where's that coming from. It's kind of getting a leg up on that whole money thing, which can put you further ahead once you get to Summit, which is a really cool thing to do. And we get
Mm.
to know you. And that's a good,
Nice. That
yeah.
is nice.
Yeah. And then the third one I've put in there is a team building webinar. Now, what we know is the sooner that you can start building some team behind you, okay? And it's, by the way, it's not an intern from the local school.
Mm.
Don't do that, okay?
Mm.
That's not what you need. But it's a team building webinar. It's really, really powerful and gives you the basic pieces of how you figure out who you need and how to find them and what you need to do to build out this team in a small way to begin with, and then be able to expand it out into a bigger team as you grow.
Wow.
So that's a really important piece as well, because I want you to focus on your brilliance. Not on doing admin, not on tracking freight problems, right?
Right.
There's just, there are
Right.
parts that you do that you're very well paid, and then there are parts that you do that are bleh.
Right.
There's
It's like we talk about the $10 an hour jobs and the $1,000 hour jobs. Like you
exactly.
need to be using your gifts up in those, absolute places where only you can do it because you're the best one to do it for your firm.
Exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
operating in your brilliance,
Right.
just staying there where you belong. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So that's what team building's about. That's a 14.97 value. So there's about 58.97, $5,900 worth of bonuses tucked in here. But you need to act quickly because this early bird piece will stay open until Tuesday, October 5th. Okay.
Wow.
So you
Okay.
need to act quick. There's 4 or 5 days. Now we will sell tickets after that. They'll just cost more. It's all right. And there's still a good value. But if you want to get in on this piece, you want to run over to interiordesignbusinessacademy.com and just open the website. The ticket thing will pop up and you just go there. And there's a great page there that has all kinds of information on it, all kinds of
Mm.
stuff. And if you still have questions, give us a call or send us an email. We'll be happy to do that. But grab your ticket because this is limited seating. I can't do this with 500 people, right?
Right. Well, that's true,
It
right?
doesn't work,
Yeah,
right?
you're really in the weeds teaching, concepts and not high level concepts, but in the weeds of how to do things. And so, yes, I would imagine it would be limited, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I want to be able to answer your questions. I want to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that when you leave, you have no more questions unanswered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in order to do that, I've got to be able to have a group that I could work in. And our students are part of this as well. In fact, I started this for our students and then decided to open it up to everybody else. So half the seats are gone anyway because there are all people in there, and it's a fun thing to get in a breakout group with them too because they know a bit more, or actually sometimes a lot more about this stuff, and
Okay.
can really answer a lot of questions and lead you through a lot of things. So community is a huge piece of what we do.
Mm.
When I came up through design business, it was a time where you couldn't ask questions.
Right.
If you asked somebody something, you got a response, something like, "You stupid girl, how dare you?"
Mm. Yes, yes,
Go,
or just I'm not, just literally looking at you and snubbing you as if why would you ask me how I do a price on a project or how do I do a fee, right?
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was really, really awful. Yeah, and so it's always been my belief that we need to create community and share best practices because that's what's going to bring our community and our industry forward.
Oh,
Not
100%.
not being secretive and nasty, but connecting, and so we have this wonderful community that shares everything, and it's really a lot of fun.
Oh, that's
Lots
awesome.
lots of fun.
So there are people that are part of the Interior Design Academy on a monthly or yearly basis. So you do this summit
Yearly.
where you let any designer who wants to come in for this 3 days come in, but they are joined by people who are active members on a year-long basis. And so that's a nice thing to see what's going on and what happens and so forth. But you come away with 3 days with, for me, $1,000, I'm going to turn that into a $35,000 fee. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, you can. Yeah.
Right. If you close one $35,000 fee based on this $1,000 spent, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah,
right?
It's quite a good ROI, isn't it?
Yeah. You got to come in and you got to do the work, and you got to actually see. Here's the thing: they got to leave and do the things, though, right? They got to leave and do the things. It's like reading a book. Like you can't just read the book and go, "That was great."
Right, or buy the book and put it on the shelf.
Right, even worse.
Even worse, yeah. All right. So yes, it involves actually doing this, but through these 3 days, you're going to have a really good idea of what the sequence is and how to do it. Really, plenty of information to go out and do it yourself.
Mm-hmm. I love
and
it.
then send me that really cool email that says, "Oh, guess what? I did it. I did it."
Yes. So it makes it worth it, right? Oh my goodness.
She didn't even think about it. She just said yes.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I love it. Well, Terri, thank you so much. Like I said, there's at least 3 other episodes, I believe, with Terri on it. And just like this, filled to the brim with things and just all the stuff from Terri's experience that she's learned the hard way, and now she's teaching you so that you don't have to recreate and re-envision the wheel here. You can do it yourself, and you can do it with her help at your side, and get to go much faster. So interiordesignbusinessacademy.com. Highly encourage you, if you are at all considering this, no reason not to do it during this early bird period and get all of the extra value of all of the bonuses. And if you do this and you do have an eye-opening experience, I'd love to get that email as well. So thank you so much, Terri, for joining us today.
Thank you, Luann. I'm so glad to be here. And to everyone else, design something beautiful and get paid what you're worth.
That's it. All right. And thank you for joining us. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or Luann University, go to luannnigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to windowworksnj.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.